Okay, so let's start tapping. First, let me say that if you're new to tapping, your first reaction might be, wow, this is really weird. I'm not sure this is for me. And to be honest with you, I thought the exact same thing when I was first introduced to this technique. However, after several minutes of tapping, I began experiencing relief and I could feel my nervous system becoming calm. I can't tell you how many times I've used the tapping process since then. Again, it's amazing. So let me give you a specific scenario on how tapping works. You know those times when you're trying to think yourself out of a negative thought. You know you're an intelligent, self-aware person, and you feel like you should be able to use positive reasoning to get rid of that thought or negative emotion, but you can't because you feel it in your body. The thought is attached to an emotion. It might be anxiety in your chest. It might be a panicked feeling in your stomach. But whenever you think that thought, your body reacts. What tapping does is it bridges the gap between your body and your mind. It separates the thought from the emotion. It dissolves the emotion so that when you think that thought again in the future, it doesn't have a charge or emotion attached to it anymore. When you tap while focusing on negative thought or feeling, you relax the body and you send a calming message to the brain telling it that it can relax too. Energy disruptions in the body are the reason we have any kind of emotional issue like panic, grief, anger, guilt, depression, trauma, and fear. Once we find those energy disruptors, we use tapping to correct them. Tapping blends focused wording with a 9-point tapping sequence that tunes us into the issue and points us to the energy disruptions that we need to address. The wording is an essential part of the process because it tells our nervous system what it is that we're working on. Negative emotions come about because we're tuned in to certain thoughts like, I look fat today, or I'm stressed and I really want to eat an entire bucket of ice cream, or circumstances like an argument with your significant other, which in turn cause our energy systems to disrupt. Otherwise, we function normally. Binging and purging impulses are not present, for example, while you're reading the comic section of the Sunday newspaper. It just doesn't happen. So once you're tuned into the issue that is causing the stress, the tapping stimulates the energy pathways and it balances and calms the energy disruptions. In addition to its effectiveness, again, it's easy, it's convenient, and it makes you feel great in a matter of minutes. So let's dive in. First of all, let's get familiar with the tapping points. The first is the karate chop point, and it's the point on the center of the fleshy part of the outside of your hand. It's between the wrist and the base of the baby finger, or you can say it's a part of the hand where you would deliver a karate chop. And you can do the left hand, you can do the right hand, or you can even tap them together. Next is the eyebrow point, and it's at the beginning of the eyebrow at the hairline. The next point is side of the eye point. So it's on the bone bordering the outside corner of the eye. The next is under the eye point. So it's right on the bone below the eye. Next is under the nose point, and it's on the small area between the bottom of your nose and the top of your upper lip. The next point is the chin point, and it's literally in the crease of your chin. The collarbone point is what you want to do is find the U-shaped notch at the top of the breastbone, about where the knot would be on a men's necktie. So from the bottom of the U, you want to move your fingers down an inch and then go out about an inch, and you'll feel the indentations there, and that's where you want to tap. Left, right, both together, or you can use one hand and just tap on that whole area. Next is under the arm point, and it's on the side of the body about 4 inches below the armpit or the middle of the bra strap for women. And then the next is the top of the head point, and I like to use my 5 fingers and just tap around the top of the head. Okay, so that is the basic tapping sequence. The tapping is done using 2 or more fingers so that you can cover a larger area and make sure that you're hitting the points. You tap approximately 5 times on each point. No need to count, but anywhere between 3 and 7 taps on each point is adequate. The only exception is during the setup step, which I'll explain here in a minute, where the karate chop point is tapped continuously while you repeat your setup statement. So the process is easily memorized. After you've tapped the karate chop point, the rest of the points go down the body in the following sequence. You start at the eyebrow, side of eye, under the nose, the chin, the collarbone, under the arm, and the top of the head. So let's talk about the 5 basic steps of EFT. First of all, you want to identify the issue. Take note of what it is that's bothering you. So from the list of things that you wrote down earlier in the presentation, choose the issue that has the most intensity for you. For this example, I'm going to say the anxiety I feel around all of this food at the dinner party. Next, what you want to do is rate the intensity of the issue. So on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being no emotion at all, 10 being the most intense it could be, write down what the number is that you're feeling towards that issue. You want to establish a before level. This serves as a benchmark so we can compare our progress after each round of tapping. For example, if we start with an 8 and we eventually get to a 4, then we know we've achieved a 50% improvement. Next, you're going to create your setup statement. The setup statement is a process we use to start each round of tapping by designing a simple setup statement and saying it while continuously tapping the karate chop point. You let your system know what you're trying to address. So when designing this phrase, there are 2 goals you want to achieve. Number 1 is you want to acknowledge the problem, and number 2, you want to accept yourself in spite of it. So an example might be, even though I have all of this anxiety around food right now, I completely accept myself. And you want to repeat that 3 times. Even though I have all of this anxiety around food right now, I completely accept myself. Even though I have all of this anxiety around food right now, I completely accept myself. Now, a lot of people sometimes feel uncomfortable with the setup statement. It may feel awkward to say, I accept myself, especially when it may be the complete opposite of how you feel. And trust me, I can relate. The first time I did it, it felt weird to me, but I've since learned the incredible power of accepting myself. Accepting ourselves releases us from the pattern of negativity and gives us the freedom to choose a more empowering thought. Again and again, I've seen the profound impact of acceptance. It's the first step to true transformation. When we truly embrace acceptance, this is when healing can finally begin. Now, a very important note here about tapping. The languages that we use in tapping always aim at the negative. This is essential because it's the negative that creates the energy disruptions in the body that tapping clears and thus brings peace to the system. By contrast, conventional methods and popular self-help books stress positive thinking and preach avoiding the negative. This sounds good, but for our purposes, it doesn't work. It does little more than to cover over the negative with pleasant sounding words. Tapping, on the other hand, needs to aim at the negative so it can be neutralized. That's the whole point of this process, to dissolve and neutralize the negative emotions and to allow our natural positives to bubble up to the top. Okay, so after tapping on the karate chop point and stating your setup statement 3 times, you're ready to start tapping through the 8 points of the tapping sequence. This process is the workhorse part of tapping. It stimulates and balances the body's energy pathways. To perform it, you tap on each of the tapping points while saying a reminder phrase that keeps your system tuned into the issue. The reminder phrase is the issue that you're tapping on. And so in this example, we're going to continue with the anxiety around all of the food at the dinner party. So the reminder phrase for me would be all of this anxiety. So you want to aim for tapping 5 to 7 times at each stop as you work through the sequence, but it doesn't have to be an exact count. If it feels right to tap 20 times or 50 times on one point, go for it. The idea is simply to spend enough time at the point to speak your reminder phrase and let it sink in. So we've just finished our karate chop point saying, we've finished our karate chop point. Now we're going to go through the sequence. All of this anxiety, all of this anxiety, all of this anxiety that I feel around food at this dinner party, all of this anxiety around food, all of this anxiety, all of this anxiety around the food at this dinner party, all of this anxiety, all of this anxiety. So that was one round. Once you go through 2 or 3 rounds or more if you want, stop and take a deep breath. You're now going to check in and test the intensity again. Feel your body and notice what's happening for you and establish an after level of the issue's intensity. Ask yourself these questions. Did the issue shift? Do I feel calmer and less anxious? How do I feel on the 0 to 10 scale? You compare this with the before level to see how much progress you've made. If you're not down to a 0, then repeat the process a few more times until you have achieved a 0 or you have plateaued at some level. And that's the tapping process. Pretty cool, isn't it?